a very large deportation because you can't live like that. You can't, it cannot be sustained, Tucker. It cannot be sustained. I think you know that better than anybody.
So I do know, I think it's the gravest crime ever committed against the United States, ever, by any country. Our leaders committed it against us. But it does raise the question of motive. It hasn't helped the labor market any. It hasn't helped Americans at all. You've heard a Democratic senator stood up and said the United States military should take these people. We should give them guns. New York City has given them guns in the police department. You wonder, what is going on here?
So it's the hardest thing. In business, and you like to go and where you started from, you sort of like to understand where the other side's coming from. So here you're looking at something. Why do they want men in women's sports? And I've been doing this now. I used to say, I was very proud to say I wasn't a politician, but I guess after a while you're sort of a politician.
I think you qualify, yeah.
And, so, I hate to say it, but you like to know where the other side's coming from. And I'll say, why do they want to have men, and they're so emphatic about it, men playing in women's sports? You see what's happening in volleyball, what's happening in swimming, what's happening in weightlifting. How about weightlifting, where records that stood for 18 years, are being broken by hundreds of pounds? The whole thing is crazy. Then you say, why do they want to have transition? I call them transition operations by the thousands. If you just say, well, I'm thinking about it, they throw you into an operating table. And you say, why do they want to have that? Who wants that? Who wants to have open borders, they're all the same thing. They don't make any sense. We're the party of common sense, right? Because I think we're really the party of common sense. And there can only be a couple of reasons. Number one, they're stupid. Well, they're not stupid, because you can't be stupid. No, but you can't be stupid and be that good at cheating on elections, okay? Because they're great at that. So they could be stupid. They could also hate our country. They could hate our country. They may hate our country. They may not even know it. A lot of people don't know it, but and the other thing is they want to cheat on elections by signing these people up. And they are trying to sign people up. They're trying to sign people up that don't even know what country they're in, okay? So that's the other thing. So it's one of those three things. Nobody really knows. But you'd say, okay, so I've been doing this for a while. I've never had anybody, I've had people come up and say, gee, it would be great if you could get the taxes down. Gee, it would be great if you could do this. It would be hundreds of things. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, it's really important to me that we allow men to play in women's sports. Nobody. Nobody. And yet, it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal.
Wait, so you think the point may be just to destroy, just to break the country?
It could be they hate our country. They may hate our country. And we deal with real scum. Like a guy like Adam Shifty Schiff. He's a sleazebag. And he's probably going to be a senator, if you can believe it. But I call him Watermelon Head. He has no, he's unattractive, both inside and out. That is, no, but this is a really bad guy. This is a dishonest guy, not a dumb guy at all. He's got the smallest neck I've ever seen on a human being. He will never be a football player, I can tell you. But he's a smart guy, but he's just a sleazebag. There's nothing else you can... Should I give you a little example?
I hope you will. I'm really enjoying this a lot.
This gentleman happens to like my son, Don, I think, because he likes you. Now,
Great
maybe
man.
you don't, but he likes you. I have a son, Don, who's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's a wild man. A little wild. I would say he's a little wild.
In a good way.
But in a good way. He's a very good kid. And I read about, all of a sudden, he's involved with Russia. I said, but I know him so well. He's my boy. I know exactly. He knows less about Russia than the cameraman that's sitting right there who's never been. Don doesn't know anything about Russia. But one day, about, 2 years, 3 years before, they met, a whole group of people met with a Russian lawyer having to do with the Novitsky Act or something, having to do with child adoption.
Adoption.
Crazy. But she was a Russian. Now, everybody in Congress knew this woman, but anyway, they go after him. Now, think of this. Russia was a major hoax, okay? It's now been adjudged to be a total major hoax. We had the Mueller Commission. We had everybody. It was a hoax. It was made up to justify why Hillary Clinton lost the election when she wasn't supposed to lose. It was a totally, and it was made up by Schiff and Hillary and some other just total sleazeballs. And what happened is the fake news media, which is back there, you do know that. They're always around someplace. But what happened is the fake news media, what they said is it started with a simple move. How did you lose the election? It was Russia. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, I won this election. What the hell did Russia have to do with it? And then it went, and it was only supposed to be a one-day deal by the Democrats. In other words, it was going to, but the press picked it up and they liked it. They like, ooh, Russia, that sounds good. You covered it better than you were funny. He'd go, Russia, Russia, Russia. He'd go crazy. But it drove you crazy, didn't it? Because you knew it was such a hoax.
It was so insane, and all these people I knew believed it. It was
such a hoax. They actually tried starting it up about 2 months ago. Did you see? It flopped. This time, the press just couldn't get away with it. I'll tell you about our lawsuit having to do with the Pulitzer. You know, we brought a lawsuit against, because they said the New York Times, Washington Post, they got the Pulitzer Prize for accurate and beautiful reporting on the Russia hoax, you know, the whole thing. And I sued them, and it's doing very well, by the way. I want the reporters to give back their awards because they were wrong. There were plenty of guys that were right, like you and Sean, and there were plenty of guys that were right. But so I said, but here's the thing. So with Shifty Schiff, see, that's the weave. See, we start. You know about the weave, right? Start. As long as you come back to the right location. So what happens? You understand that?
Yeah.
Somebody said, does he ramble? I said, I don't ramble. I do the weave. I covered many, many subjects. And you always come back to the right. That's genius. There's a difference between rambling and genius. Right? Okay. So now getting back to the point. So I have a son, Don, a good guy, knows nothing about Russia, that has zero. And they went through millions of phone calls. There wasn't one call to Russia, et cetera, et cetera. So Shifty Schiff, Adam Schiff, a real sleazebag, he's at an intelligence meeting, and he's not supposed to be talking, but wherever he goes, the press is out there standing because he's provocative or whatever the hell, or because they figure they'll get something bad on me, which is probably much more accurate. So Schiff comes out. Now think of this, how bad a person you have to be. I have a son, and I love my son. I love all my children. You love your children. I mean, there are a couple of people that, who doesn't love their children? There'll be about 20 people out there. But I have a son, and I love my son. And he's a good boy. He's a good guy. You know Eric, you know Barron. I love my kids. I have good kids. But I love my son. And Schiff goes out. Now think of this. It was him and Crooked Hillary and some other people. They conceived of this hoax. So they know it's a hoax. They know it's not real because it's a made-up story that they conceived, and, you know, they spied on my campaign, all this stuff. But they conceived of the story, so he knows the story is false. And yet he leaves an intelligence meeting, goes to the press, which is waiting outside, a lot of press, and he says something to the effect, Donald Trump Jr., the son of the President of the United States, will be going to jail. He will spend many years in prison for what he's done to our nation. And think of how bad you have to be. He just said that an innocent kid is going to go to prison on a story that's a becocked story. It's a made-up story. And he said, my son, the president's son, is going to spend many years in prison. I called my son. I said, hey, Don, how's everything? Are you okay with this? He said, Dad, I don't know what they're talking about. He meant it. He said, I don't know what they're talking about. I didn't want to get into it too much because I didn't want to make him nervous. And I said, well, you don't know anything about Russia, do you? He said, Dad, I don't know anything. I have nothing. I don't know what they're talking about. So think of this. It turned out the Mueller report, and I tell you, it was an amazing thing that happened because I had 18 radical left lunatics, and I had Mueller who didn't know where the hell he was, okay? You saw that in the hearings. But think of this. I had no chance. It was a stacked court, but I had an angel in that court. I had somebody that wouldn't allow them to do what some of the sleazebags that you know, and you know who they are. Somebody on that court, and I think I know the person, high-quality person, and would not allow them to do what they would have loved to have done, is convict even though you're totally innocent, you didn't even know what the hell. So we were exonerated fully. There was no hoax, there was no anything. We were exonerated fully. But just think of it. Just think, and the Mueller report came out, and it was a complete exoneration. But here's a guy that made up a story that tried to put my son in prison for years. And he knew the story was false. They made it up. How bad a person do you have to be? And I heard the son of the President of the United States is going to jail, and he'll be there for many years on a story. Now, how would you feel if you're the kid? I mean, you're a young kid and you're hearing this crap. Just think of it. But how bad do you have to be? So you know it's fake because he made it up. And you know, he's a storyteller, too. You know, he writes little bullshit stories. You know that, right? But I just think they're really... We have some... And, you know, I talk about the enemy from within, and they do have... They're the greatest con people in the world. Oh, they talk about how dare... That's a threat to democracy. They're always... They're the threat to democracy. You know, the amazing thing is where they say, he wants to become elected and he wants to put people in jail. How terrible. That's what they've been trying to do to me for 4 years.
And I should say that your son, Don, had 5 small children. Can you imagine threatening a man with 5 kids with prison for a crime he didn't commit? So you said that you were saved in the end by an angel. How have your views about God changed in the last 8 years, and particularly after getting shot?
Well, look, I've always been a believer, but I wouldn't say, you know, there's a certain pastor, Robert Jeffress, and I didn't know, his name is Robert Jeffress, nice guy from Texas. And he said, you know, Trump may not be the best Christian of all, but he's the only one going to take us to the promised land because he's the best leader and he's the toughest guy and he's going to be able to get us through this crazy life. And he was a big supporter. And now I have unbelievable evangelical and Christian support because I've done a great job for them and we're together. But he said he may not know the Bible quite as well as other people are supposed to. But, you know, he also did something. They picked Ronald Reagan over Jimmy Carter a long time ago. You know that they said he wasn't quite as religious, but he's the guy that's going to get the job done. And I did a great job with a lot of things having to do with saving religion because these people want to put religion out of business. These people are, you know, they go crazy when I say the enemy from within. And I said, look, we have China, we have Russia, we have Kim Jong-un of North Korea. We have a lot of people out there. But if you have a smart president, I had a great relationship with President Xi until the China virus came in. And that was a bridge too far, but we'll have a very good relationship. And there's reasons for them to want to like us. There's big reasons. But if you have a smart president that kind of smart, meaning with people, if you have a smart president, somebody that knows what's happening, you're going to be fine. But, you know, we do have an enemy from within. We have some very bad people. And those people are also very dangerous. They would like to take down our country. They'd like to have our country be a nice communist country or a fascist in any way they can. And we have to be careful of that. But they're the greatest con artists in the world because as soon as I said an enemy from within, they said, he's saying an enemy from within. These are sick puppies, I'm telling you.
Well, I mean, I got to say, just objectively, I noticed that the second you left and Biden came in, we didn't have any more Antifa riots, which makes me wonder if, like, how is Antifa not the militia of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, but you did have a lot of riots, and you have a lot of people being hurt in a different way. You have a lot of people being hurt very, very badly. We stopped. We had a period of time where they wanted to tear down statues.
Yeah.
And, they thought the statue of Abraham Lincoln should be ripped down immediately, and a couple of others. And we stopped them. I signed an old bill that was old and dusty. It was like from 1910, the United Statues Act of like 1910. It said that if you tear down a statue or even get near it, if you don't want it, if up to the president, you go to jail for 10 years. And when they started getting a little bit frisky, I took that old dusty statue, hadn't been used in a long time. We took it out, and they were getting a little wild. You remember that period of time? And I said, I had a little news conference, and I said, anybody that touches a statue, they were going to rip down Andrew Johnson. They were going to rip down Andrew Jackson. And the rope was already on them. And I mean, I saw what was going on. And I signed that thing, and I had a news conference. I said, anybody that touches a statue, if you touch the statue, you go into jail for 10 years with no parole, no early getting out. And I looked, because there was a little discord in Washington. I looked at those people from the back, and I saw those people. I saw about 1,000 asses. They were facing me as they headed out of town. They were heading out of town, and we never heard from them again until recently. When you had about 2 months ago, you had some horrible riots in Washington, D.C., where they took spray paint and they sprayed the limestone lions, and they burned the American flags badly. And, I'd like to see anybody that burns the American flag 1 year in jail. I really believe that.
You mentioned the enemy within. It's pretty clear, well, it's not clear, it's a fact that the CIA and the FBI, which are absolutely not allowed by law to have any influence in American politics, because that's the end of democracy, both of them and a bunch of other intel agencies worked against you on behalf of the Democratic Party from the minute you got elected in 2016. And they're still doing it. They're working against you now. What will you do about that?
So one thing I've learned in Washington, it's all people. You got to get the right people. So when I got elected, I was only, according to the fake news, in which I think in this case it wasn't fake, they said I was here 17 times during the course of my life, and I never stayed over. So I wasn't a Washington person. I was a New York person. I knew New York, but I didn't know Washington. And all of a sudden, I'm the president of the United States. I'm saying, and I didn't know anybody. I said,